Royal food served on the grandest tables is so much more than just a meal. Historically, these extravagant dishes were created to represent power. They also set fashions. Nowadays, royal food is all about showcasing the best of British. In celebration of royal food,
we know it's the Queen's recipe because we've got it in our own hand.
From the present and the past,
that is proper regal.
We recreate old family favourites.
Now, the Queen Mother had this really wicked trick with these.
What a mess.
We sample royal eating al fresco.
Oh, wow.
That is what you want.
And revisit the most extravagant times.
Pheasant, stag, turkey, salmon, oysters and turbot dressed in a lobster champagne sauce.
Unbelievable.
This is Royal Recipes. Hello, I'm Michael Buerk and welcome to Royal Recipes. This is Audley End, one of Britain's finest stately homes, built in the style of a royal palace and once owned by a king. In the splendour of the gardens, halls and kitchen of this grandest of country houses, we'll be recreating the food served at the highest royal tables. And it all starts here with this gem, a royal kitchen maid's cookbook, the only surviving recipe book of its kind in the Royal Archive. This is an exact copy of the original, which is kept at Windsor Castle. Inside, the recipes of Mildred Nichols, who worked at Buckingham Palace in the early 1900s. And for the first time in over 100 years, we'll be bringing these recipes back to life. Today, in the Royal Recipes kitchen, Chef Paul Ainsworth prepares a dish inspired by the dinner the Queen laid on for President Obama.
It's unbelievable.
Well, you can see why President Obama enjoyed his visit to England.
A former royal butler introduces historian Matt Green to banquet etiquette and protocol.
Remember, we don't put elbows on the table, we don't put wrists on the table, we don't lie on the table. The only time your hands are on the table is actually when you're actually using, obviously picking up the cutlery and you're eating.
And the royal banquet were the British bubbles from the vineyards of the South Downs.
We've actually been served at 3 state banquets. We hear when the menus get released that we see that our wines are on the list. It's really quite exciting.
In the grandeur of the historic kitchen wing at this stately home, we start in 2011, when the Queen welcomed Barack and Michelle Obama.
Welcome to the marvellous old kitchens, and indeed the marvellous young Michelin-starred chef Paul Ainsworth. It's the big one today. I mean, no pressure. Actually, a lot of pressure.
There is a lot of pressure.
It's the Royal State Banquet. What are you going to do?
Michael, we're going to do a wonderful dish of porpiettes of lemon sole with a wonderful watercress mussoline and non-tour sauce.
Oh, it sounds marvellous, and is actually the dish. See, this is the menu card for the state visit of President Obama in 2011.
Wow.
First course.
First course. Right.
Right, let's get
on
what
with
President Obama got.
We've got a lot to do. I might need a bit of help from you today.
Okay.
Right, so the first thing we're going to make is the watercress mussoline, and that's what we're going to stuff the sole with. So here we have our chicken breast, which goes in like so.
Yep.
And then we're just going to put in a little pinch of salt with it. And we're going to blitz that first. Okay, like so.
Yeah.
Just to break down the protein. Okay, next we're going to add in 1 egg white. Okay, and again, another blitz. So we don't load all the ingredients in there, stage by stage.
So when you say paupiette, what does that actually mean?
Rolled and stuffed.
With this?
So with this, absolutely. Then we're going to add a splash of cream.
Yeah.
Okay, like so.
Just a splash. Do you ever do a dish that hasn't got a splash of
Yes,
cream?
This is royal dishes. They are very fond of their French cooking, which is obviously very, very heavy with butter and cream.
Yep.
So we've just added in there some watercress, all right? So you've got this lovely chicken mousseline. The cream lightens it, believe it or not, and then we've got this lovely pepperiness happening. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our lemon sole fillets, and we're just going to take some of this, and it really is worth doing. It may look fiddly, but just spread them right the way down the length of the fillet.
Actually, taking trouble's the whole thing about state banquets, isn't it? You know, they start laying the table up 5 days before the event itself.
Really?
Yeah. You know, polishing the porcelain, getting the silver out, and all that kind of stuff.
So we're just putting our mousse right down the middle. And a lot of it, you might think, chicken, why chicken?
Yeah,
and stuff,
I was
and why
certainly
not
thinking
using,
chicken and fish.
A fish mousse, but chicken's such, because it's kind of like got that neutral flavour, it's such a good protein when you're making mousselines and farce and stuffings.
And it gives it a bit of body within the delicacy of the fish.
With the fish, yeah, it does, and it doesn't take away from the flavour of the fish. Now, just really simple, it's not too difficult. Just take your fillet and just roll it up like so, just like that. And then with a cocktail stick, through the tail end, just watch your fingers and then go out the other side like that, like so. Would you like a go, Michael?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. All right.
This might take some time.
Right, okay. So I'm moving on next to, Michael, is a sauce, and the sauce is beautiful. It's a non-tour sauce, which is basically a crayfish sauce. Now, classically, this would be done bechamel base, but what I've tried to do is lighten it and make it more like a bisque sauce, but still keeping it true to its French roots with cream and some cognac and some butter.
yes. Oh,
So it's
wonderful.
not quite as heavy. So,
What's going on in there?
so this is our steamer. Right, we're just going to gently place those in the steamer, like so, okay? Important, Michael, some seasoning. All right, just some sea salt, just round on our flesh like so. Lid on. And because that's so delicate, now let's just let the residual heat just steam those gently away.
You've taken it off the
I'm just
heat?
taking it off, and that steam will just rise up through, cook the mousse gently, keep the fish nice and moist. Right, onto our sauce.
Okay.
So we've just roasted off some crayfish shells.
The way you do.
Yeah, with some carrot, onion, leek, celery, a little bit of paprika, a little bit of tomato puree, some brandy, and then some fish stock.
Wow.
All right?
And how long have you done that for?
And we just simmered that for a couple of hours just to kind of get a
Really
really
get
nice,
all
deep
the
flavour.
taste out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason they're not favoured by chefs sometimes is because they are quite difficult to prep, but they've got such wonderful flavour. Now, it's important to
Actually,
push...
you can smell it.
It's
You can
beautiful,
smell
isn't
it.
it?
Yeah,
Push
yeah.
all of that through.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we return that back to the heat.
That looks brilliant.
Okay, we're going to get some asparagus on because we're just going to finish this with some beautiful asparagus. Turn up our heat. We want to bring our sauce to the boil. Right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add just a little bit of cognac. Now, we don't want to add a lot because we're
Why
not really
not?
going to reduce it out because it's so strong.
Yeah.
We don't want to kill the flavour of the sauce. A little bit of cream.
Oh, inevitably.
Now, this would have been a lot richer if we stuck to the original classic recipe of doing it, making it like a bechamel sauce. So, Michael, if I could
But this,
just
by
get-
your standards, is pretty light.
This is quite light. Yeah. Right, I'm going to add now some butter. And what the butter's going to do is just going to emulsify with the sauce, slightly thicken it and give it a wonderful richness. Okay. So if I could get you to just carry on whisking that sauce just like that for me, please, Michael.
Yep, will do.
And we're going to start to plate up.
Excellent.
So we've got some asparagus that we've just kind of warmed in some beautiful butter.
All British ingredients.
All
eh?
British ingredients.
British asparagus, British lemon salt.
So we've just got these lovely, wonderful asparagus spears.
Beautiful
Plate.
colour, aren't they?
Stunning. Once that sauce is thickened, we're then going to add our crayfish tails.
Oh, I
so
love
we've used
those.
everything. We've
Yep.
used the meat from the tails and then those wonderful heads in our sauce.
I think I've done this rather brilliantly, don't you?
Beautiful. And you see how it's thickened and gone nice and velvety?
It's my touch.
Beautiful.
It's my touch.
It is your touch.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
There we go.
Okay. The bit that I'm really dying to show you is these beautiful porpiettes of lemon sole.
They've been off the heat.
They've been off the heat, okay? And look,
And they cooked.
I'll bring them over to you.
Yeah.
And now, just remove our cocktail sticks.
Yeah.
Look at that. And just look how succulent and juicy
Yeah.
they are.
Without any heat at all.
Just a residual heat. We're going to finish them with a little bit more sea salt.
Yeah.
Okay. Now our sauce. We're going to add in the crayfish tails.
Yep.
Like so. Stir in. Quick taste. Little bit of lemon.
It's a bit too rich, even for you, is it?
It's not. You just want that lemon just to cut it.
Just a little
to
bit
go
of
for it.
bite
Yeah,
to it as well.
absolutely. Like that. A little bit of lemon juice, which goes so nice with the fish.
Yeah.
And also a little bit of lemon on our fish. Delicious. Lemon asparagus. God, I can't wait to get into this. This is something else. Okay? And now just those crayfish. Over the top like that. Some on the side. There we have it. That, for me, is proper banquet food.
They still talk about President Obama's state visit to the UK, and perhaps at least part of the success of it was down to that.
Yeah, that is something else. Come on. You died to taste. Go
Actually, yeah.
I'm just as excited as you.
I'm going to have that one. Oh, God, it's a bit
It's
big.
a lovely tail, that
Yeah,
one,
and that
isn't
was
it?
what I was going for. A nice bit of tail, as President Obama might say. Here we go. Lovely. Oh, I feel a bit underdressed for this. I should be wearing white tie and tails, shouldn't I? That is really good, isn't it?
It's unbelievable.
Well, you can see why President Obama enjoyed his visit to England.
A light dish that really delivers on flavour. Banquets are not just about the food, they're about the whole spectacle. The royal butlers play a crucial role in creating that. Where better to learn about preparing for grand royal banquets than at this monumental country house, given to a duke by a queen in the 18th century. It may not be a royal home, but it's a palace. And historian Matt Green is here to learn all about royal etiquette.
I've come to Blenheim Palace to meet someone called Grant Harold, who runs the Royal Butler School, to get a crash course on how to put on a royal banquet. But on second thoughts, I think I should be entering via the servants' quarters.
For 7 years, Grant Harold worked as a butler to Prince Charles, the Duchess of Cornwall, the Duke of Cambridge, and Prince Harry.
Hi, Grant.
Hello, Mark.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Good, thanks.
This way.
Blenheim Palace was built for the Duke of Marlborough. 150 years later, his descendant Winston Churchill was born here. Over the generations, there've been many royal guests.
Wow. This is the entrance hall of Blenheim
is.
Palace?
Yes,
It's like
with all
something
the
out of a fairy tale. State banquets, per se, don't happen here, but it's not dissimilar, and it gives us a sense of the much grander state banquets. And is it true that they're laid out with almost a degree of military precision?
They are. I mean, obviously, royal standards are the kind of what everyone wants to kind of aspire to in these kind of homes. And the aristocrats are known for copying the way that royals do things.
Presumably, in order to achieve the meticulousness of this layout, to have that effect that's really quite mind-blowing, you have to measure everything.
At Buckingham Palace, they have they've got obviously a measuring stick that's actually got the markings on it as to where things should be. So there's a distance, obviously, which they'll measure from the edge of the table to the back of the chair.
Okay.
They'll measure the space settings between each place to make sure that it's the right distance. They measure the glass, they measure the cutlery. So it's right, that's how precise it has to be.
As butler at Highgrove, Prince Charles' private residence, Grant would oversee this kind of table preparation. Before work can start, each member of staff must don a pair of white gloves.
The white gloves, obviously, it's so we protect the silver and the glass when we don't get any marks, because it's already probably been polished and cleaned.
Yeah.
We can always double check it, but normally it is already done by the time it comes to the room, and then all we're having to do is actually put things down. You want to make sure it is symmetrical and you're not off to the side or anything. If there's any crests or anything, always make sure they're pointing to the top.
Pointing north,
Yes.
okay.
Another trick to laying a table is the rule of thumb. The gap between crockery and cutlery must be an inch, about the length from a thumb knuckle to tip.
The soup spoon's going to go on the right.
On the right?
And again, with maybe a millimetre or two between. And then the pudding cutlery on top. That's good.
Okay.
Maybe just a fraction down.
Right.
Then we're going to get the side plate and the small knife. So they're going to go just to the left.
To the left?
And then the knife is just going to go on the
Just
right
perched
hand
on the
side,
edge there.
on the edge. The
Yeah.
blade pointing away.
Okay, so it's looking pretty complete now.
And we're going to get the glassware. This is going to be for the red wine, and this is going to be for the white. So you want to put it just to the right of the blade of obviously the main course knife.
Yeah.
The red wine, just up to the left.
Like that.
You have to maybe push it just a little bit closer, just again a millimetre maybe away, and then pop the red there. So the champagne goes to the right of the white wine, directly opposite the red. And then lastly, you've got the port glass, and that just goes directly behind. And then you've created the diamond formation. We just need a napkin. In the centre.
In the centre, like that.
Beautifully done.
And there we are, voila. It's really pleasing to see it come together like that.
Protocol and etiquette governs everything at the banquet. How to sit, and of course, how to converse.
Remember that we don't put elbows on the table, we don't put wrists on the table, we don't lie on the table. The only time your hands are on the table is actually when you're actually using, obviously picking up the cutlery and you're eating.
What would you say is the biggest faux pas I could make?
If you were sitting at the table and you brought out your mobile phone, that would be such a big,
Right.
you know, I think somebody would probably even say something to you because it wouldn't be done.
Say I were lucky enough to be sitting next to the Queen. Would she talk to me? Is there a protocol about who she talks to when?
With a state banquet, they're going to have the most senior guest to the right, and the Queen will normally speak to that person for, say, the starter, the main course, and then going into the pudding.
Oh, so you get your guaranteed FaceTime
Oh, yes,
with the Queen.
you'll get
you don't
some
need to
time.
worry about
No,
kind of
don't need to worry
cutting
about
in with her.
No.
So it sounds like a pretty decorous occasion. I'm guessing there were certain foods that were off the menu because they were too messy.
Yes, I mean, things like spaghetti, you don't really want to sit there trying to eat spaghetti, and we know how tricky it can be and how messy, and with all the finery, that's the last thing you want is bits of spaghetti landing all over the place. So ideally you want to kind of keep it as graceful and elegant as possible.
I can't wait to do it for real.
I know, so all you have to do is now write to the Queen and ask for your invitation.
I'll get
Good
on
luck.
it. Yeah, thank you.
Being a royal butler is not really a job, it's more a vocation, more a kind of state of mind. Anyway, from grand diplomatic banquets to something a great deal simpler. Bubbling away.
Bubbling away. It's my butter making noise.
It would be.
Yes, we are going to do the Queen's recipe for drop scones.
The Queen's recipe.
The Queen's recipe for drop scones. Ever had a drop scone?
I have had a drop scone.
Yeah.
But the important thing about this one is, not only is it the Queen's recipe for drop scones, but they played their part in the special relationship with America as well.
They did. And we're going to do the original recipe, which was caster sugar with some sieve flour, some bicarbonate of soda and cream of tartar.
What do they do then?
And what they're doing, well, the bicarb, first of all, is going to give us the rise. That gives us the lift. Cream of tartar lends a nice bit of acidity to the recipe.
Bite,
bit of bite. So while we're doing that, we're going to add a little bit of butter to the pan here, Michael.
Why do they call them drop scones?
So the reason they're called drop scones is exactly in the name. They drop, as opposed to a normal scone, which, you know, you'd have with, you know, clotted cream or jam that's like a dough that you cut out and then bake. These, it's a dropping consistency. So we're going to take 2 eggs with our milk.
I'm seeing the Queen doing this now. You understand?
Are you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the great thing about this is we know it's the Queen's recipe because we've got it in her own hand. Handwritten letter to President Eisenhower, who was then President of the United States, January the 24th, 1960. And he'd actually visited the Queen at Balmoral, and she had cooked him these drop scones. At least we think she cooked them. This is the letter in which she sends him the recipe that you were doing now. Now, what are you doing there?
So we're just gently now bringing together the eggs and the milk. We're going to have basically a pancake batter. And once we've whisked it smooth, we're going to add a little bit of butter. So you see how now the mix is coming together nicely? We're just going to add a couple of spoonfuls of butter in there like that. And already that lovely smell of the butter, it's delicious. I absolutely love drop scones or bellinis.
Yeah.
That's what they're like.
The letter is really quite charming because it says, "Dear Mr. President, seeing a picture of you in today's newspaper standing in front of a barbecue grilling quail, as you do, reminded me..."
Grill quail?
reminded me that I'd never sent you the recipe of the drop scones, which I promised you at Balmoral. That's rather nice, isn't it? Do you think she did it herself?
Do you know what? For this, I think it's lovely. I'd love to imagine.
Yeah.
And
But there's
I'm making the Queen's...
a lot of elbow work.
A lot of elbow work, yeah. OK, so we've got a nice, lovely, smooth... And that's the drop. That's why they... As opposed to a kind of like a... Do you know what I mean? Like a scone.
Yeah.
So now we're ready to go.
It's lovely and gooey, isn't it?
Into the pan, yeah. We're going to add a little bit more butter into the pan there. And let's simply, just like that, we're just going to put, I think we'll get like 4 or 5 in there.
In her letter to him, she says, "I have also tried using golden syrup or treacle instead of only sugar." What do you think?
I think it could. I think the Queen's onto something there, and the reason why I think it could be nice is because with the golden syrup, or especially the black treacle, you're lending a real molasses note to it. You're getting more flavour into it as opposed to using sort of like quite a bland sort of sugar like castor sugar.
It could be very bland, couldn't it? Without
Absolutely.
that extra flavour, the nuttiness that you're going for.
So we're just going to have a little check underneath. Oh, look at these. These are special. You see, turn them around, just quickly turn them over like that. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
They look delicious, don't they?
They certainly do.
Just gently over like that and just nice and steady. You come to the last one, and you see just on the top, Mike, we've got that lovely caramelised butter just on the top.
I wonder what President Eisenhower made of it all. Remember, he was the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe in the Second World War. He was responsible for D-Day. Here he is, President of the United States, 1960, height of the Cold War. And here's a menu for dropped scones.
So when he was not running America, he was in his pinny,
So.
making drop scones.
But actually, no, it's really interesting because he replies and says, "What's caster sugar?" Now, is that because he wasn't a cook?
Well, I think in America they call it superfine.
Oh, right.
No, but it's it's the same sugar. But
he did reply.
He did reply.
He's running America, but he did reply to the letter about the scones.
He obviously made them, or his chef replied. Right, little tip right here. You just want that needle to get. So when you put your finger in, there, they just come back up, and that's just they are lovely cooked. And now we're just going to bring them out on top of it, and they're absolutely fantastic. And you know what? Serve these. You could do sweet or savoury. If I was doing savoury, little bit of smoked salmon and some creme fraiche. Really extravagant. You could have a little bit of caviar.
Come on, I want to taste them. They look good, don't
The risen. Just have a smell of them. Just that lovely caramelised butter,
it
scone
really
smell.
leaps at you, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then literally,
we're just going to have butter. No clotted cream, no jam.
No, we're
just
keeping
dead
them
straight.
nice and simple. So you've got that lovely quality butter.
Oh, wonderful.
Slight saltiness to it.
I'm on the edge here. I'll have that. To think they played a part... no, I just think... I like the history of it. To think they played a part in the special relationship between Britain and the United States.
It's fantastic. And like that,
Scones
it's just that
cement the relationship.
Oh, they smell delicious. Ready? Yeah. They're good, aren't they?
They are. Let's
They are
concentrate on the
stunning.
scones.
Oh,
You've done a good job there, Paul.
thank you.
A case of drop scone diplomacy, perfect for the more informal occasion. The fine dishes served on these grand royal occasions have historically been washed down with vast quantities of champagne. But these days, even the bubbles are British. At the foot of the South Downs in Sussex, 6 vineyards make up the Ridgeview estate. They've been making award-winning sparkling wine here for 20 years, served at the highest tables, including Buckingham Palace and Downing Street. It was the vision of the late Mike Roberts, nicknamed the King of Fizz.
Well, my dad, he loved champagne, he loved going to champagne, and he loved drinking champagne. And he wanted to do something in wine. And if you look at a map, we're actually only 66 miles north longitudinally than Champagne. So the soil's virtually the same, the climate's almost the same. And he thought, well, if we're going to make wine, let's make something to our closest neighbour.
Simon Roberts is now head winemaker, and his sister Tamara is the CEO. This is very much a family affair.
The first 10 years of Ridgeview, between 95 and 2005, was probably spent convincing people that English wines were OK to drink, that they weren't all bad, that there was quality and there was change on the way. Because prior to that, people's opinions of English wines were that they were low quality.
The family were pioneers at a time when homegrown fizz was almost unthinkable. And their passion for British bubbly is what's taken their bottles to the top tables.
We've had some really exciting royal connections. Perhaps one of the earlier ones was with the Queen's 80th, when one of our wines, the Blanc de Blanc, was actually chosen for that, which was really exciting. And that was our first sort of foray into that area. And since then, we've actually been served at 3 state banquets. We're not told that it's going to be served. We hear almost when everyone else gets, when the menus get released, that we see that our wines are on the list. It's really quite exciting.
The wine is produced from grapes grown on these vines, every one planted by Simon's parents.
When they bought the estate, it hadn't been really used for farming for about 20 years. So it was a blank canvas. This was literally just fields. So we developed the garden, we've had the winery built. So, I mean, it's changed hugely. The whole estate is 36 acres. We have 16,000 vines here. We have 10 acres of Chardonnay, and we have 8 acres of Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, which are the 2 black grapes that go into our wines.
The grapes are picked in the autumn, then brought into the winery to be processed. Large presses extract the juice, which is left to settle before yeast and sugar are added. This ferments and turns the sugar to alcohol, and the wine is born. There are 64 large tanks here, holding thousands of litres, and the winery now processes 300,000 tonnes of grapes a year. Once bottled, all that's left to do is wait.
So the grapes that we processed in October, they'll come down here and bottle in January, and we have space down here for 250,000 bottles, and they will stay down here in the cellars anywhere between 18 months and 10 years. These go back about 10 bottles, so in each of these caverns, we've got about 10,000 bottles.
These Sussex wines are exported all over the world, and the family have even taken on the French champagne producers.
Decanter wine competition is probably one of the most recognised worldwide, and it's one of the only competitions that actually has champagne and sparkling wine in the same category. And the year we won Best Wine in the World, we're up against 2 very well-known champagne houses, and we are since the only English wine, or the only wine outside Champagne, ever to win that award.
Mike died in 2014, shortly after his pioneering work had been recognised with an MBE and a trip to Buckingham Palace.
We as a family couldn't have been more proud. It was such an honour. So my mum, my sister and I went with Dad to Buckingham Palace. Prince Charles awarded him his award, and it was an amazing, amazing experience, and I was so proud of him.
British produce is such an important part of the modern state banquet. These days, it's more about showcasing Britain than the royal family.
Well, I'm here in the grand library of the house with Fiona Ross, who's a food historian, writes a lot about the royals. Tell me, what is the actual purpose of these grand state banquets?
Well, as you would expect, they very much showcase everything that is British, and they're intended to cement diplomatic relations, welcome foreign visitors, show the sort of grandeur, elegance, and
To impress?
Yes, to impress, absolutely.
Given that, how carefully are things arranged?
Oh, they're arranged months in advance. Invitations are sent out up to 12 weeks in advance. The Queen personally inspects the banquet before it happens, and she even checks the toilets. And footmen polish the tables. They even polish the fruit on the tables. So there's enormous attention to detail at royal banquets.
And what about the logistics? How many glasses, how many settings, the porcelain, all this kind of stuff?
Well, if you imagine there are 6 glasses per guest, that could involve easily polishing up 1,000 glasses. And then you're speaking about cutlery that goes back to George IV, so it's in the family, and it's silver-plated. So that has to be cleaned and polished as well. So enormous effort goes into the presentation of the table.
How different is it now from what it was in the past?
Well, remarkably enough, it's less excessive than it was in the past. At the time of, say, Charles II, 1671, when he threw a banquet for the Knights of the Garter in Windsor Castle, he actually, they ordered in something like 16 barrels of oysters, 2,500 feathered friends, including crane, owl, swan, peacock. There was something like 6,000 asparagus spears and 20 gallons of strawberries.
Not a picnic?
No, not a picnic.
Now tell me, do they always go smoothly? I mean, do all the guests understand the conventions?
Well, not necessarily. For instance, in 1971, when President Jimmy Carter turned up for the state banquet, he had an enormous bow tie on. Then he proceeded to congratulate the Queen Mother on how much she resembled his own mother. And then he planted a kiss on her lips.
On her lips?
And she said she'd never been kissed like that since her husband died.
What else has gone wrong?
Well, Queen Mary, for instance, once handed a guest a dog biscuit with the intention that he feed it to her dog, and unfortunately he was a bit hard of hearing, so he popped it in his mouth.
And more recently?
And more recently, Barack Obama, unfortunately, started speaking during the national anthem while it was playing. The Scots Guards had just started playing God Save the Queen, and he had to quietly allow his speech to fizzle out.
Oh, gosh, red faces. Fiona, thank you. Preparing a souffle can be a risky business for a state banquet, but one royal chef knows a fail-safe way to create the perfect high-rise pudding for a high-end dinner. In the 1980s and early 1990s, Chef Darren McGrady would regularly cook on board the Royal Yacht Britannia, preparing grand banquets for the Queen and world leaders. Demanding conditions called for low-risk puds.
A lot of the times, the dishes that we would serve would be dishes that were served day to day to the Queen and her family. One of the Queen's favourites was the cold lemon souffle. To start off with some lemons, the zest is going to give it a real zing. It's going to give it a nice colour as well. Once I've got my lemon zest, I want some juice in there too. The cold lemon souffle is not really a souffle. It doesn't go in the oven, it actually goes in the refrigerator.
This is a mousse masquerading as a souffle. Darren's next step is to separate the eggs and add the yolks to the lemon juice.
And then some sugar in there as well. We're going to put that into boiling water, what we call a bain-marie, and whisk all of those ingredients together. That's going to sit on there, and while my eggs are getting hot, I need to whisk the egg whites to make them nice and stiff.
Once the egg whites are beaten to stiff peaks, Darren combines water and gelatin powder. He then pops it on the heat and leaves them to dissolve.
So once my egg yolks are hot to the touch, then I can take them off and put them on a machine. And we whisk it until it goes cold. So what we're doing is creating a sabayon, and so that gives our volume that we then fold some whipped cream and some whipped egg whites into, and that gives us that mousse, our souffle, that great bulk. Once it's been on the machine, look how it changes in consistency. Now we can add our whipped cream and then lightly whisk that into the egg mixture. Then I have my gelatin that has warmed, and I'm going to fold that into my mix as well. And finally, my egg whites. So everything there is now folded in, and it's nice and smooth.
Darren's wrapped grease-proof paper around a souffle dish, stapling it top and bottom. It will allow the mousse to set above the top of the dish like a risen souffle.
So now I'm pouring the souffle mix into the mould. All you'd really need to see is just a little bit over the mould there, so it looks like that souffle is climbing out of the dish. So this goes into the refrigerator now, overnight to set. Set nicely. All we have to do now is take off the paper from around the edge. One of the most memorable times of making this dish was on the Royal Yacht Britannia in Miami in 1991. I was in the Royal Galley preparing a banquet for President Reagan and President Ford. There we go, lovely. Now we can just put some cream on the top just to finish it off. It's so much easier doing this, piping it on a nice still table, than rolling about on the Royal Yacht Britannia, preparing this for President Reagan and trying to make sure every piece was exact. All it needs is some chocolate on the top. So I'm going to use a really fine grater just to grate some chocolate to go around the top. And that just looks fantastic. A simple cold lemon souffle in a souffle case. You're going to have all of your friends asking, how do you manage to get that to rise if you didn't even put it in the oven? Cold lemon souffle, souffle au citron froid, fit for President Reagan.
For our final recipe, we're going to go back in time to the late 19th, early 20th century, and that prince of gourmands, King Edward VII, one of his favourite, all-time favourite puddings, desserts, chartreuse a la royale has a ring to it, doesn't it?
It really does.
And a dish fit for a big diplomatic banquet.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look at it already. You can kind of see our ingredients here.
Yeah.
Very royal, very rich.
And
but
very
also-
tricky for a chef.
And very tricky for a chef. So I'm going to start off by taking a mango. We've got mangoes and melons, and I'm just going to show you the slicing of a mango. So we're just going to top and tail it.
Yeah.
And then basically, Michael, we're just very thinly all the way around, like so.
Now, this is fascinating. I was talking to one of the royal chefs who told me that the Duke of Edinburgh had come into the kitchen one day, saw him with a mango and a knife, just like you, and said, "You don't do it like that, you get a spoon." And with a spoon, you can actually get the flesh of the mango away from the stone better than with a knife. Is he right?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree with the Duke of Edinburgh. No, because by doing it like that, you're just going to have lots of wastage with a spoon. And the idea is to get as much of that beautiful, fleshy, fragrant fruit off the stone. And that is it. And now you've just got that lovely, fragrant, fleshy mango.
Gosh, you can smell it.
You can, can't you? And it's absolutely delicious. So the next bit is just now turn them out like that and getting as many as you can. And don't waste that. Turn it into a puree, fruit salad, anything. So these bits...
Or even eat it.
Or even eat it. So now they go into our lime jelly. And what we're going to do now is painstakingly go all the way around.
It's very labour-intensive, this
It is very labour-intensive. And also as well, you'll see from the title, you'll see that I'm using lime jelly.
Yeah.
And the title would suggest that it's the liqueur, chartreuse.
Chartreuse, yeah.
And what they would do, they would painstakingly brush each individual piece of fruit with the liquor. Can you imagine?
Must take
Can you
hours.
imagine that?
Hours.
Hours, absolute hours. But do you know what? There's far more flavour as well in this beautiful lime jelly. So just basically, you can see I'm just going right round like
And
that.
they stick okay, do they?
They stick
to the
because
inside?
the jelly, it's important that the jelly is just starting to cool down. And as
right,
the
so
jelly
it's quite
starts to cool
sticky.
down, it's getting nice and thick. We're just going to put our last disc of mango on there like so, Michael.
It looks terrific.
It does, doesn't it? It does. Right, now we're going to spoon in the remaining jelly. Like so. And then the idea is, you can see now it's just starting to set.
Yeah.
Now just spin round. Can you see how, as you spin round,
Yeah.
it's just basically kind of sticking to all of the fruit and going all the way around the mould?
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's good. Right, now just transfer that to the fridge, please. And we're
Okay.
just going to let that set, ideally for about 2 or 3 hours.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, that's done. What's next?
Fantastic. Next, the filling. Very rich, very royal. So here, we've got some milk on the stove that we're just bringing to a simmer. We've got some lovely rich egg yolks and sugar that we're just going to mix together. And we mix them so they're nice and pale. Just in there like so.
6
And the
eggs?
reason, 6 egg yolks,
Yeah.
sugar in. And the reason we mix it now together like this to make it nice and pale is to make the custard lovely and rich.
It's a
So,
wonderful colour,
you
kind of
see-
apricot colour, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Gorgeous eggs.
Yeah.
So we just keep whisking that about 2 to 3 minutes so it goes nice and pale. Because what you're doing, you're basically dissolving the sugar into the egg yolks.
Yeah.
So can you see it changing colour
Yeah.
from what it was? Okay, now we're just going to take our hot milk
Yeah.
and just pour that onto this egg yolk.
And
Egg
just to be
yolks and
clear,
sugar.
this is the kind of custard that goes into the mould that you've already made.
Absolutely, yeah. Now we go back into the pan,
Yeah.
like so. Okay. And we basically just stir that over the heat. Now that's going to get thick and nice and rich, but we need to set it so it holds in the middle of our chartreuse. So what we've got here, Michael, is gelatine. Okay? We just get rid of the water and straight into our custard mix.
And that just melts it.
And that just melts in and will basically give you like a nice setting property in the custard. And once that cools down, it will thicken and be beautiful and rich and smooth, just like that.
Oh, lovely.
Now we've got some lovely whipped cream here, and we're just gonna, what we call folding. Now,
As
the
if it
reason-
wasn't rich enough.
As if it wasn't rich enough. So we'll put about half of that in, and gently fold it. We don't want to just beat it in there because we do want it to be nice and light and airy. Okay, just nice and gently.
This is a kind of dish for a really sumptuous banquet, isn't it? But also, a slightly gloomy thought, it was actually served on the Titanic, you know, this dish.
Was it really?
Yeah, I think the night before it hit the iceberg.
Wow. So just keep mixing until it's completely folded in like so.
That looks
and you'll go to this kind of like sort of very light kind of creamy mixture. Now, Mike, if I could ask you to go back and get me the one that we set earlier, we're going to put this wonderful filling in the middle.
Okay, I'll be
Thank
back in
you.
a minute, Chef. Here we go, Paul. Nice and cold.
Lovely.
And pretty set, I'd say. There you go.
See, you've got that lovely film going around the
yeah.
edge. Now, that's our custard and cream mixture. Can you see what I mean by the folding technique, how lovely and light it is? So we're just going to pour that in, like so.
Oh, waterfall of sin.
All the way to the top. Yeah. I like that. A waterfall of sin. Brilliant.
There we go. Oh, yes, don't leave any on the side of the bowl.
Like
That's
so.
perfect, isn't it?
Absolutely. Okay. Now, again, just right to the edges.
Yeah.
We don't want to see any of that fruit. Okay?
Yeah.
Another little important, just with your thumb, just right the way around any of that mix, because when we turn it out, it's all those little things that can catch when you're trying to turn it out.
Yep.
And again, just a little tap, so there's no air
Settle it
bubbles.
down.
Yeah, just settle it down, there's no air bubbles in there. If I could just ask you to pop that in the fridge for 2 to 3 hours, setting time, and out there should be the finished wine. Should be.
Right, Chef.
Thank you.
There should be trumpets. There should be trumpets. There should be a fanfare. I'll put it there.
I'm so excited. This.
I hope it
You
doesn't
don't
go...
see stuff like this anymore, and it's
don't.
a shame because it's absolutely gorgeous. Ready?
Yep. Oh, look at that.
Chartreuse à la Royale.
You can see that at a banquet, though, can't you?
Yeah, there's no words.
You can see the footman coming in with, the waiters coming in and popping it down in front of the president of Yugoslavia or something.
Absolutely, and like I say, you don't see things like that much anymore, and it's so beautiful. It really is beautiful.
It looks too perfect to cut.
It does.
Oh, no, it doesn't. Come on. Don't make too much of a meal of it.
So we just want to cut through that fruit as well. Here we go. Look at this. Ready?
Yep.
Straight out like that. Oh, yes. Look at that. God.
Oh.
I hope you're not calorie counting.
Not this week, I can tell you. Okay?
Go for it. Let's try it. Yeah. This lovely cream mixture with some of that fruit.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, so it is very light, isn't it?
It's incredibly exotic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely delicious.
We're going to have to wrap it up. That's all from Royal Banquets. See you next time.